because my old phone had like a weird black splotch on the screen. But now the problem is the alarm tone is different. And like I'm just too lazy to change it. I don't like it, but I don't want to change it because it just feels like work. And like these are like very first world problems.
I get you. You're like, it's low priority. Oh, I think we're live.
Yeah. No, we absolutely are. Looks like we have maybe 5-ish people watching, so I'm gonna give it a minute or two before we get started. But I guess like now is as good of time as any, because this is being recorded, which means it'll exist on YouTube in the future. And I'm thinking for like posterity's sake, you can answer this question since you put me on the spot. I mean, you didn't put me on the spot. You gave me like 72-hour notice. What is your favorite Beyonce song?
Okay, I was like, he might ask that. Okay, let me see. There's a lot.
Okay.
Well, I didn't do it beforehand, huh?
Did you expect me like?
No,
did you think about this yesterday or just now?
No, just now as he started talking, I was like, oh, he's gonna ask me what's.
I thought I was being slick.
Let me see. Okay, I think in the more recent songs, and people will probably not agree with me. Beyonce has a country song, and I want to make sure I say the right title. Beyonce starts with Daddy or Daddy's Lessons or something like that. I like that song. And then like for the more old school stuff, I like Say My Name, Bills, 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 Check Up on It and all that. But sure. Yeah.
I'm looking up Daddy's Lessons now.
Yeah. I don't think it's people's favorite song. And then with the most recent album, I like Virgo's Groove and then Plastic Off the Sofa. So I don't have like a particular favorite. It's just more like off of different albums.
I got that. Yeah. No, I get that. Because like an artist with a discography like Beyonce that like including like from the 90s, that's a lot of albums and like different. I mean, I'm not that well versed in Beyonce, but like with some of my favorite musicians, their style changes, and I do like them, but they're very different styles, and so it's hard for me to pick what style I like because like they have evolved as I have grown. So something like sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing.
Go ahead. So something like I might have liked in the early 2000s and 90s is like different than what I listen to now, but I love that song in the 90s or 2000s. So now I still like that song, even though like nowadays it might not be my traditional style. Anyway, we have sorry if I butcher your name, Apoorv Gupta saying hello from YouTube. So hi.
Hello.
We'll give this another minute before we start, but I guess I'll do some introductions. Yeah. Hi, y'all. My name is Michael Slotty. I am a developer advocate at Amplication, the company hosting this session. We are being graced with the presence of Rizel, who's a developer advocate from GitHub. She has officially, I hope you don't mind I'm divulging company secrets, but she's been at GitHub for a year now, as of this month, I think you said. Yes. So round of applause. 1 year. Congrats.
Thank you.
Additionally, she is the developer who created the Octocat, which you can see clearly in the background of her.
Wait, I didn't create the Octocat.
No, that wasn't you.
I wish.
Casually joking there. Anyway, Rizel is going to be talking to us about GitHub Copilot, which if you've tried GitHub Copilot, you know it can be like a magical experience because it generates lots of code based on this expansive data set of code that GitHub has. And I'm sure there's like a lot of cool things that you can do. I've seen in tweets that your tweets are coming from Copilot. I don't understand what that means. Maybe you're explaining this in this talk. Maybe you'll explain it later. I will want to know. So I'm going to pass it off to Rizel in a second, but stay tuned with us because after Rizel's talk, as a fun bit of information, Amplication launched our version 1 product yesterday. So I'll be giving a little quick preview as to what's new in Amplication. at the end of the session. And in addition, we'll have time for a Q&A. So, Rizel, I'm going to pass it off to you, and I'm going to magically disappear in 3, 2, 1.5, 1.999.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that awesome intro. That was really fun. I will start sharing my screen, and I think we might see a little bit about, let's see, a little bit about tweets. And I want to make sure people can see it because I didn't. Okay, cool. Sorry. I'll go back to sharing. Sorry about that, y'all. Okay. Not the greatest start. Thank you. Okay, cool. I will jump right in so that we can have a better start. Trust me, y'all, this is a really, really good talk, or at least one of my favorite that I've given. So this talk is called Level Up with Copilot. And Michael mentioned that he saw me write a couple tweets with Copilot. I want to check in with y'all. Do you think that it's true or false that I actually wrote this with Copilot, or am I just tweeting that out for fun and games? Go ahead and type in the comments. I'll check afterwards. That way I don't have any like issues with accidentally exiting out of StreamYard again. But then also answer this question for me too in the comments. Do you think you can use GitHub Copilot to cultivate your engineering career at any level? So type in the comments true or false. I will check back later. Alrighty, so we're gonna go over a couple of things, and I hope I'm able to fit it within the 30-minute time limit I have here. But I want to talk about what GitHub Copilot is, how to use it, how you can use it to level up your career, how it's personally helped me, and we're gonna explore if we can actually write tweets with GitHub Copilot. So like we already mentioned, my name is Rizel. I'm a developer advocate at GitHub. Prior to that, I was a software engineer, and I'm pretty addicted to Twitter. So if you also are addicted to social media, you can go ahead and follow me at Black Girl Bites on literally every social media platform, including dev.to and Hashnode. I write a lot of blog posts. But on Twitch, I'm Black Girl Bites 1 because I did get myself locked out of my account because I forgot my password. Alrighty. So, what is GitHub Copilot? Simply put, it is an AI peer programmer that helps you write code faster with less work. And it's not magic, y'all. A lot of people, when it first came out, they were like, oh my goodness, is it going to take my job? It cannot take your job. It's not a sentient being. It can't even read my mind. And to be honest, it doesn't always spit out perfectly well written, up to date code. I just want to be like, completely honest and transparent with y'all. Sometimes it has a larger sample size of an older API version. So that's what it'll give out. And if you're still having a hard time imagining what GitHub Copilot is like, it reminds me of Smart Compose. In Gmail or Google Docs, maybe you've been typing something and then you see it auto completing your message. Like in this example here, where somebody's writing to Jacqueline about Taco Tuesday, and they're like, hey, Jacqueline, haven't seen you in a while, and I hope, and then it finishes it off by saying, and I hope you're doing well. So that's kind of how GitHub Copilot works, but with code. Now, under the hood, GitHub Copilot is drawing context from your comments and your code, and it's suggesting individual lines and whole functions instantly. And the cool part is it's powered by OpenAI Codex. Now, before I wrote this talk, which was a couple months ago, I had just been telling people it's powered by OpenAI Codex. I had no clue what OpenAI Codex was. I did know that OpenAI is an AI research lab, but I was like, what is Codex? And apparently, it's an AI model that they created, that OpenAI created, that translates natural language into code. And the thing about it is, it's a version of GPT-3. If you've heard people talk about that, that stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer 3. And that uses deep learning to produce human-like text. And GPT-3 is actually used by very popular apps. Some of your favorite apps like Duolingo use GPT-3 for grammar correction. And basically, Codex is a version of GPT-3, but it's fine-tuned to work specifically for programming. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go over to OpenAI Codex. Hopefully, I'm screen sharing properly, and we are going to take a look at like what OpenAI Codex really is doing. So they have this little API playground with some really fun examples that I'll show you. One is the movie to emoji converter. So basically, you can convert movie titles into emojis. I'm going to show y'all that. This is like part of my favorite demos. So I'll zoom in a little bit for folks who might be watching this on their phone or something in the future. Here we have a couple examples that they've given us. Back to the Future is a young man, an old man, a car, and a clock. Batman shows us a man in a suit and a bat. And then Transformers shows us a car and a robot. So let's see what they give us for Star Wars. Cool. They gave us a couple of stars and like some swords. What about maybe The Devil Wears Prada? People know that movie. And cool, we got a lady and like a suitcase and a shoe and a lipstick. So this thing's really cool. And I have like a one more example for y'all, or two. It zoomed it in so much. Let me look for the mood color. So they also have an example where you can take a description of a color and convert it into a CSS hex code. So they have a blue sky at dusk. Let's see what hex color they give us for this. Obviously, I don't memorize hex colors, so I'm going to Google it and search what color that is. This is what they've translated to a blue sky at dusk. Now, let's say I put in like a basketball. Let's see if we can get the color orange. Got to put that hashtag back in. And it's looking right to me. Let's see. I'm going to paste it in here. And we got orange. So this is what OpenAI Codex is based off of. And we can do the same thing for code. So like, let's say I say, write a binary search algorithm. If I could spell, and then I press submit, and it even started to, oh, this is a first where it didn't actually finish it for me. Let's try starting from scratch. Write a binary search algorithm. Let's see what happens. Oh, there we go. It actually finished it. So I wrote a comment and here it is, writing a binary search algorithm. This looks like JavaScript to me. And it even like added in other comments so I know what's going on within the code. So this is what Copilot is using, y'all, to actually be able to generate these comments and code for you. So we've gone through those examples. Now that we know what it's using, I want to talk about the different features that are within GitHub Copilot. One is we have predictive code. That's the one that most people are talking about. That's the one that I've been talking about with y'all as well, where instead of predictive text, you have predictive code. In the screenshot here, I wrote a comment and I started writing a function, and Copilot actually kind of finished it off for me. Another feature that people may not be aware of, I definitely wasn't, is that you can view more suggestions within Copilot. For me, I used to get really frustrated that Copilot was suggesting things that I wasn't really interested in. I was like, oh, this is not exactly what I want. And I was talking to a product manager and I was like, you know what would be cool if we could like get an option to view more suggestions? And the product manager was like, Rizel, we already have that. And I was like, oh, did not know that. So maybe you didn't know it either. If you hover over the initial suggestion that GitHub Copilot gives you, you'll get this little tab toast thingy, and it'll prompt you to look at the next suggestion it would have offered you, a previous suggestion, or you can click open GitHub Copilot to see all the suggestions it was going to suggest to you overall. which I think is pretty helpful. Then we have Copilot Labs. This is a separate extension, an experimental extension as well. So it's something that the GitHub Next team made as like an experiment, but it comes complimentary if you have Copilot access. And what it has within it is you can translate your code from one programming language to another. So here I've written some JavaScript code and I decided I'm going to translate this into Python, or I wanted to ask it to translate it into Python. I clicked that button that said ask Copilot and it produced this. Now I'm not a Python expert, so y'all tell me, does this look right? Yes or no? Another thing that it has is it allows you to have an explanation of what's going on within your code snippet. I think this is super helpful if you're like new to a code base or new to a team or something like that, and you see a block of code and you're like, I don't know exactly what that's doing. What you can do is highlight that code snippet and you can say explain code within the Copilot Labs feature, and it'll give you an explanation. So for this binary search function, the explanation it gave me is that it's declaring two variables, low and high, which will be used to represent the start and end of the search. It'll initialize low to 0 and high to the length of array -1, and then blah, blah, blah. It goes on. But it basically explains it to me in plain English. If I have context of code a little bit, I'd be able to understand what's going on in that function. All right. Also, if you're like, girl, I want to sign up, I need this. So after you sign up, the extension will be available for you in Visual Studio Code, JetBrains, or NeoVim. All right. And one thing I want to note to everybody that if you don't want it to match public code, we do have a filter. It's about like 1% chance that it'll ever match like unique public code, according to the GitHub FAQ. But to make sure you have 100% like no suggestions from public code, you can block it. This is a preference for some people, so it's up to you, whatever you want to choose. All right, so maybe you're saying these are really cool features, but how would this be useful for me? Your talk is called Level Up with Copilot. How can this help me level up? For me, some of my goals as a software engineer are to code faster and cleaner. It's to write good documentation. It's to be a better mentor and a mentee. And it's to gain understanding for new concepts quickly. Like those have been my goals when I started out as a software engineer, and to now, like 3 years later, now that I am a developer advocate, those still remain my goals. If you want, please put your goals in the chat. I want to switch back, but I also want to save y'all from seeing the picture and a picture and a picture, so I will check later on. But in terms of Copilot, I think Copilot continues to help me do all those things, including coding faster and cleaner, including writing good documentation, including being a better mentor, and including gaining context for new concepts quickly. So I will show y'all how. GitHub Copilot's really, really good at patterns. It like recognizes patterns and it's able to follow them. So I think it's really useful if you're like using an API, creating an API, or writing unit tests. It's also good with helping you remember syntax. Sometimes I can get really hung up on syntax. Like for example, I map an array like all the time, but I always forget like where the fat arrow goes and where the parens go. I don't know why. My brain just doesn't like hold that in my mind. And then also like regex. I'm not gonna ever memorize any of those like digits and symbols. While I think regex is super powerful and cool, I'm just not gonna do it. So Copilot has been super helpful in like helping me to type those things out without me having to recall them from memory. And I do want to note that Copilot gives you the best results if you write clear, understandable comments. So let me show y'all how, right? So my personal experience is I feel like I write messy code. I did this talk to my friends and they were like, Rizel, don't say that. People will think bad of you, but they're not engineers, so they won't understand. Like, I think maybe everyone can relate to this. I write messy code and I'll just go ahead and refactor it later. So when I joined the GitHub team, we teamed up with or we collaborated with Microsoft Visual Studio Code team, and they were like, you know what, we want you to build a VS Code extension. And I was like, oh my gosh, now Microsoft people are going to see how bad my code is. I don't want that. But to my surprise, the principal dev advocate, or one of the principal dev advocates on that team, messaged me that my code was gorgeous and easy to read. Like, that was really confusing to me. But I realized that, like, although I'll take some of the credit, Copilot really helped me. I wrote a lot of clear comments so that Copilot can help me to write the VS Code extension, because I'd never written a VS Code extension before, and I felt like I didn't have that much time. So it helped me to write that clean, clear code that he was able to understand. And my trick is always, like, sometimes people say like Copilot's getting in their way. I turn it off when I'm laying down the initial structure of my project, and I'll turn it back on once I have a pattern going. So here's an example that I found on the internet. This guy actually commented this example after I wrote a blog post about Copilot, and he said it helped him to write these translations using Copilot, right? So instead of him having to type out one by one that he wants to translate the word answer, question, and date into French and Spanish and Japanese, Copilot picked up on that for him and like really sped up his process. Also, like I mentioned, it's really great for regex. So here's a GIF of me using it to validate a phone number. So I put in the I just typed the word pattern and it finishes it for me. And then I was like, let me test this out to see if it actually works. So I wrote in validate phone, and then in the console said it was true. And then also it's good if you're like writing bash. Like I don't know bash. So I'm able to just write a comment, and it was able to list all the Python source files, which are more than 1 KB, and that contained the word Copilot for me. And then one of my favorite parts is that it's really good and helpful for people who may speak English as a second language. Code is so American English centric. Like, for example, even the word color in CSS is spelled with like an O, but in some parts of English speaking countries like Canada or British, they spell it with a OU, right? So that can be hard to remember that syntax. But in this example here, I wrote a comment in Spanish. And this is something I didn't even know existed. I was showing my friend Copilot and my friend Ramon, and he was like, you know what if like you wrote a comment in Spanish? And it actually worked. So this comment says like import the necessary libraries that I need for this program. And then Copilot literally knew that I needed Tweepy, which is the library for this program. And it wrote that import statement for me. And here's another example. I also am just going to quickly check the chat to see if there's anything I'm missing. Cool. Nothing crazy. Awesome. All right. So here is this other example that I think is really cool. This guy made a VS Code extension that is like audio assisted, and he's speaking in Korean, but it was able to understand his Korean and be able to write some code based on the directions he gave it. So I will play about like 30 to 40 seconds of this.
카카오 아이가 듣고 있습니다. 특정 연도의 윤달 여부를 판단하는 함수. 사용자한테 입력받은 두 값. 위의 두 값을 더해서 출력한다. 리스트에서 가장 작은 숫자를 출력하는 함수. 크루 명단.
Cool. I actually played more than 30 seconds, but that was just an example of him using his voice assisted extension that he made to write a comment, and then Copilot was able to understand that comment and write the code for him. All right, so moving on, I've also seen people use Copilot to write documentation. Now, as I said, Copilot is fine-tuned for programming, so you do have to be careful about this because sometimes Copilot may suggest interesting things, but I think it's super cool if you have like little code snippets within your documentation that you want to include. So here we have an example from Hayden Barnes, and he was writing some install documentation, and he said on SUSE, and without him actually even typing it up, GitHub Copilot is like, you want to run sudo zipper install da 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 da. So I thought that was awesome. Another example or another thing is that a developer advocate at Microsoft admitted that half of their documentation for the static web CLI is actually written using Copilot. Again, I want to stress that you got to like be a little bit careful when it comes to just like written prose rather than code. Now I also want to talk about being a better mentor and mentee. So for me, it's helped me to do both. When I'm a mentee or even just a driver while I'm peer programming, I get really, really nervous. Like I mentioned to y'all already, I get really hung up on things like syntax, and it kind of makes me look like I don't know anything when I'm peer programming with a mentor, because I'm sitting there like, oh, I hope I remember to spell this right. Oh my gosh, now I forget where the curly braces go and stuff like that, just because I think they're judging me. And it makes me not focus on the logic anymore. But having Copilot as I peer program with somebody else is really helpful, because now I don't have to worry about the syntax or my spelling or my typos, and I'm more focused on the actual logic. Also, as a mentor, it's been helpful for me. So I didn't mention it that much in the beginning of my slide deck, which I usually do, but I helped to organize a program that teaches women of color and non-binary people of color to code. We teach them HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's it. But sometimes they come back and they're like, I have a job and now I write C#. I don't know C#. I don't know how to help them. But Copilot Labs has been helpful for me, where I can take snippets of code and be able to translate it into something that I actually understand and be able to help them better. Now we have context for new concepts, right? So sometimes in studying for interviews, studying for interviews is hard, right? And sometimes I get like a little bit tired of doing it all. I'm like, listen, I solved one leak code problem. Now I'm going to take a nap. But Copilot has helped me to keep pushing through that and keep challenging myself. Because sometimes what I've done is I've worked backwards, where I've had Copilot help me solve the problem. I delete all the code after that. And then I will turn off Copilot and try to quiz myself or see if I remember how to go about that now that I've seen Copilot solve it. It's just a way of like reverse engineering or thinking backward. And I recognize that everybody learns differently, but that's what works for me. Also, like I mentioned before, it's really good if you're navigating a new code base, whether you're new to a company or new to an open source project. If you see snippets of code that like look foreign to you, you can definitely use Copilot Labs and highlight it and be like, oh, okay, that's what's going on. And most of all, it's helped me with demos as an advocate. A lot of times I have to create demos in languages and with tools that I don't have that much experience in, and I have a short amount of time so that I can like show people how it works. One example is I was writing code, or I was teaming up with the Twitter DevRel team, and they were like, we want you to show how Copilot works with Twitter API v2, and we want you to use a Python library called Tweepy. Now, I don't know Python, so that kind of freaked me out, but within 30 minutes, I was able to come up with a really quick demo just by having Copilot actually installed and active within my code base. So I'm going to show you all an example of that right now. We are going to use Copilot to write a tweet. And let me just check how much time we have. My watch says not that much, so I'm going to check in. Oh, my video's been off. I'm so sorry, y'all. Why am I having problems today? Thanks for being patient with me, even though my video was off. Cool. All right, so I'm going to give you all that example. I'm so sorry. All right, so what we are going to do is I'm going to go into code spaces and have this get loaded up. And if people don't know what code spaces is, it gives you the ability to write code within your browser. Now, a lot of people get this confused with, now I'll do this while the code space is loading up. A lot of people get this confused with GitHub's web editor. It is not the same thing. So GitHub's web editor allows you to, oh, it's going super slow. We can skip this, but it allows you to press the period button and actually like see a web editor, but GitHub Codespaces allows you to like have a terminal and be able to run code and install extensions and so much more. So what I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to show y'all how to use Copilot. First, I'm going to install this library really quickly. Cool. It is here. And I'm just going to, just for the sake of commenting and showing off Copilot, I wouldn't really do this in real life, but I'm going to say import the Tweepy library. Already started finishing my comment and it finished the statement that I wanted as well. It's assuming maybe I want to import a time library now. I do not, but nice try. So I want to actually import this config file that I have that has all like my API keys. So import config file and then import config. Awesome. Now it's assuming I want to create an OAuth handler instance. This is from API v1. So like I mentioned to you all, sometimes it's leaning on like older out of date code just because it has a larger sample size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over it and see if we have a couple more suggestions here that might work better for me. So as you can see, I have a whole bunch of other suggestions and there's not exactly what I want. So I'm going to take things into my own hands and I'm going to write a better comment that says, create a client with Tweepy. And I'm going to close this so we can have more space with Tweepy client, consumer key, and secret. And let's see what it does for me. There we go. That is exactly what I wanted. So I wanted to create a client and these should be uppercase. Copilot is trying its best. It's not doing too bad though. Consumer secret key. And there's another thing I want to put in, and I think that is my access token. And there we go. And it actually finished the rest of it for me, which is perfect. And I'm just gonna, I think Python, I'm not a Python person, but I think it needs specific tabbing. So I'm gonna do that. Cool. And I will speed this up after. I'll probably just do one more thing and then I'll like copy and paste the rest. So the next I want to do is I actually want to create the tweet. So I'm going to say create a tweet with client.create tweet. And I want it to say method and I want it to say what do I want it to say? With a string of I'm in Amplication meetup, or I'm at an Amplication meetup. Okay, cool. And I will copy and paste the rest just so we can speed things up just a little bit. Paste, and let's see where we can go from here. Let's run this code and see if it works. And I'm going to do send tweet dot py, and I think Python 3 goes before it. And let's see what happens. Oh, I think I always have an issue. I'm going to just copy and paste. Oh, I didn't actually create the tweet. That's why. Tweet. I'm in an application meetup. Sorry, I'm not focused at all. Let's try again. since this didn't work, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste it. I always have an issue with the indentation. Wrote this tweet with Copilot, and I'm at Amplication right now. Cool. Basically the same thing, y'all. And let's run this so this could get working. Cool. It says tweet sent. And if I go to my profile on Twitter, the tweet is actually here, right? Y'all see it. I will delete it because I have so many different versions of this tweet. And I will wrap up this talk in a couple of seconds because I had quite a lot, right? So I thought, you know what, like sending a tweet is cool with Copilot, but how could I make this more practical? And one of the ways that I thought of making this more practical is creating a GitHub action where every time you label a good first issue, it tweets it out, which will make this easier for new contributors to find your project, especially since Hacktoberfest is coming up. So here's like a screenshot of the contents of my GitHub action. Here we have basically me saying like, if an event or if it's labeled good first issue, then go ahead and run this code. I set up like how I want the environment to be. I want it to use Python 3. And then I go ahead and install the library I want, and I go ahead and run the file in addition to the different secret keys. And here is where I like gather like what issue I'm on, so that it'll be able to tweet out the right one. And the results are usually this. Just for the interest of time, no need for me to actually run it live, but the results are usually me saying, this is a good first issue with a link to the issue. So we've proven that you can send tweets with GitHub Copilot, and you can use GitHub Copilot to level up your career. That is it for me. If you wanted, I can send a link to the slides in the chat, and you can also feel free to connect with me here with this QR code, but I'll also put a couple links there. And thank you so much, y'all. Sorry about the technical issues and my camera keep coming off. I don't know why it's doing this to me. I can't hear you though.
Yeah, my mic is muted. I was joking when I was talking about the Twitter thing. I didn't think that was an actual thing, but that's awesome to see that's part of the talk.
It is.
Please stay with us because I want an opportunity to go into a Q&A. But before that, I just want to show our audience some new stuff. So I'm going to screen share real quick. So give me 1 second. Okay, so there we go. So long story short, yesterday application version 1.0.0 came out. And so if you're just joining us for the first time, or if you've been a member of the application community, check it out, see what's going on, because we've got some new cool and exciting stuff happening right now. And it's really important because when building backends for a new project, repetitive coding tasks end up becoming like a significant pain point for developers. And that's why we're really proud of the work that we did for application version 1.0.0. Anyway, application is a tool that is designed to empower developers to create enterprise-grade applications. And some of the new features and functionalities that we've included with application v1 is support for microservice and monolithic architectures. We have continuous sync with GitHub. We have support for mono repos and poly repos. And additionally, we now have a plugin functionality, so developers can take advantage of community-added features and functionality. And I just wanted to showcase 2 minutes some of these new things that we have going on. So here is a application project that I have running at app.amplication.com. Right now, there's one resource, and this is one of my microservices that handles transactions on a web store. But let's say, hypothetically, I wanted to create a microservice that will handle sending emails for transactions, returns, etc., and etc. So I can add a resource, and we'll create a new service. We don't need any of this stuff. So I'm going to turn off all these stuff for now, because this is just going to be designed to handle emails. So create service. And so the question is, how will this service handle creating emails? Because it for orders and transactions, because it doesn't necessarily know about the orders and transactions from the other service I have, which is the service that handles transactions. So let's go into our plugins and let's enable Kafka. And Kafka is our message broker, so we can handle communication between our different services. And so this is one of the new features of our plugin support. So I'm going to install this plugin. And additionally, one thing we should do is create our message broker. So I'm going to create the message broker. And that's going back to my services, create message broker, create. And let's create a topic. Our topic is new order. And I'm sorry if I'm breezing through this. Next week, we're going to be having a more extensive demo. I just want to keep this timely. And I know I can ramble. So we have a topic for new orders. And let's get back to our projects. So we have our message broker that is going to handle conversation with new orders. We created a service for emails, and we have our service for e-commerce. And let's add our Kafka plugin. Let's go into our connections. So now we can try to create this communication. And so here's that message broker we created. We're going to enable it here. And this is the e-commerce thing. So when a new order happens, we're going to trigger it from here. So this service, which is our e-commerce service, is going to send a message based on new orders. Let's go back to our project. Let's go back to what will be the email service, connections, message broker, enable this in here. And this is all cool and dandy. I mentioned additionally that we have support for polyrepo and monorepo support. So here I can create the, I can say where in this repository I want this project to exist. So we'll just do, yeah, that's close enough spelling of packages. It's awful. We'll go with it anyway. Commit changes, and then we can push all these things to GitHub. Again, I'm keeping it brief today. These are just showcasing some of the new things that we have going on. Next week, we'll be having a demo, but I'm going to end the screen share for now. We'll have more information. So if you're interested in what's going on, go to amplication.com, join our Discord. There you can see more. And with that in mind, I want to open up to questions because Rizel definitely demoed a lot of cool things. One of the coolest things I think was the GitHub action for the pushing, sending tweets for issues that are good for first timers. But while we wait for people to ask questions, and again, sorry if I'm rambling like a madman, to the audience also. How you mentioned that Copilot helps you with kind of writing some cleaner code and kind of provides insight into how you can approach problems that you like when you kind of see a solution, you have a better understanding on how you can write that for yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Have you had other developers or other people that you know have similar experiences? Like what have their experiences been, or what's the feedback have you gotten from other developers?
Good question. So I would say I haven't directly talked to that many developers about it. I mostly have seen tweets where they're like, oh, it really helped me. I think the main tweets I've been seeing are people talking about how it helped them write with documentation, because like developers are not like big fans of writing documentation. But we do have a blog post on like how it's increased developer happiness, which embarrassingly I should have already read. But let me find it so I can drop it in the chat for y'all. Because I think it has some really great insights onto like how it's been helpful for other developers. Developer happiness, GitHub Copilot. Here we go. Oh, I can only paste it into the private chat. I don't have access to the comments, so I don't know if you want to post it there.
I will try. The comments are on YouTube, and I think YouTube ends up blocking links.
Okay.
However, if you join the Discord, we will share the link there for those of you in the audience. So amplication.com/Discord, you'll find the Discord, and we'll share the links there.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, it's a whole like scientific study on people who have felt like, is it making their experience more frustrating? Is it helping with repetitive tasks? Is it helping them complete their code better? Is it helping them like improve as developers? So that's where like if you want that question answered, I would definitely read that, and I'll post it in the Discord after.
Sure. Let's see. As we're giving people the opportunity,
Why is
and you've disappeared again.
I don't know why my camera hates me today. This is so embarrassing. Oh my god. Let's see. Let me see if I can get it back. I think the wire is old or something. I'm almost there. There we go. Or not. I will just use my Mac camera. It's not the best, but it won't disconnect. Whoa. And I'm super
I don't want to say jarring, but it took me by surprise at first.
Well, it was jarring for me too. Like, why am I so up in it?
So how often you said that like sometimes if Copilot gets in the way, it's something that you can that you'll turn off even yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
How often do you see yourself actually developing with Copilot actively on?
I think every time I've been coding so far, I have had it on. It's just usually in the beginning. I'll turn it off when I'm like trying to brainstorm like what I want and like the structure that I want. Like I'll turn it off, and then once I get to the end, like let's say I'm like writing unit test or doing something that has a pattern, and I know GitHub Copilot can pick up on it, I'll turn it back on. But sometimes like I'll be typing and I'll be like, not sure what I want to do. And the GitHub Copilot will pop in and be like, you want to do this? I'm like, no, that's not what I want. So I'll turn it off just to allow me to be able to think. And once there's stuff that I'm like, I don't have to think that deeply right now, and I just want to like finish up a unit test or something like that, I'll turn it back on.
So not saying that coding ever is boring. Not saying that at all. But ideally, it kind of helps with some of the more mundane chores.
Yeah, it helps with the mundane chores, the repetitive task. At least right now, like that's been my experience, because I think for me, I wouldn't suggest putting all your trust in an AI, right? Like when you're coding, you want to make sure that you're like checking over what it writes and stuff like that. And I think in those situations, where the code is like a little bit less complex, I feel comfortable and confident being like, okay, cool, this is what I wanted to do. It was just able to autocomplete.
Okay. So you're advising companies not to fire developers yet?
Do not fire developers. It is a peer programmer. It's a co-pilot. It can't do things by itself.
Okay. I don't think we're getting much, if any, questions from the audience.
Yeah.
So I think this might be a good place to call it. Is there anything else you want to bring attention to or put out there before we part ways for today?
I don't think so. This is the first time that a lot of people haven't asked me questions. I do have another blog post that's pretty similar to this talk called 8 Unexpected Things You Didn't Know You Could Do with Copilot. So I'll probably post that in the Discord too. But that's it from me. If y'all had any thoughts on things that could have been better, let me know. I know that like the screen sharing and my camera going off probably interrupted things, but yeah.
Well, I will say thank you. Thank you for joining us. For the members of the audience, be sure to check out Rizel on, I was going to say GitHub, but I mean Twitter. I mean, go ahead and look at her code on GitHub, but primarily Twitter. Her handle is Black Girl Bites. If you can see it on the screen, if you didn't realize it yet. Additionally, if you're interested in coding smarter, not harder, Copilot's an awesome tool, but we at Amplication are trying to provide a similar mindset with a different way of doing it, but a similar approach where code is being generated for you. So check us out, amplication.com. Join our Discord community, amplication.com/Discord. We'll be having a deep dive into our new version of the product next week. You can learn more about that again on the Discord. I'm pitching Discord hard. I should get paid. Anyway, by Discord, I mean. Anyway, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the audience for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time. Bye for now.
Bye.